My name is Michael Hecht. I'm a research scientist at the Planetary Science Institute, was formerly the Associate Director of MIT Haystack Observatory, where I still have a relationship, and I am the principal investigator of the MOXIE instrument on the Mars Perseverance rover. I've been privileged to be able to fly 2 payloads now to Mars over my career. The first one was the Mecha payload to Mars on the Phoenix mission back in 2008, and most recently the MOXIE payload on the Perseverance rover. MOXIE has the mission to demonstrate that it's possible and feasible and practical to make oxygen out of the thin CO2 atmosphere on the surface of Mars. Oxygen we'll need someday when we send some of these students, or maybe their children, onto Mars to begin the process of human exploration. We have yearned to explore space as a species, I think, since we learned it was possible, and maybe even before we learned it was possible. Just as we have yearned to explore foreign lands, to explore unoccupied places, to sail the seas. It's been a fundamental human passion, human drive. It may be as religious in its origin and spiritual as it is scientific. The scientific curiosity, of course, is what drives most of the exploration we do today. We want to learn about other planets, in part for its own sake, to understand how the universe works, but also in a large part to understand more about how our own planet works, to put it in perspective. As someone once told me, it's very difficult to learn anything about something when you only have one example. Okay. If you have multiple examples, 2 planets, 3 planets, more planets, you can learn not only about those planets, but you can put our own planet in perspective. Oh, this was a wonderful experience with these students. They were asking questions before I had my first slide out. I've never experienced that before. And the questions were wonderful, and they were both direct, specifically to the work we're doing, you know, what happens to the carbon monoxide when you split CO2, to very, very grand questions like, why should we do this? Why should we spend our resources on this rather than feeding humanity? These are wonderful questions, and they're all interrelated. So I love talking to the students. I could have stayed in there all day. Well, let me answer a slightly more specific question. People that are interested in pursuing space exploration, work in the space industry, you know, a lot of times they ask, what should I study? You know, should I study astrophysics? Should I study mechanical engineering and be a roboticist? And my answer is all the same. Study whatever you have a passion for, whatever you're good at. And just be very good at it and look for opportunities, because it's astonishing how many different disciplines are needed to do a space project. You know, with the Perseverance rover, one thing you don't think about until you've been in the business is that we have a need to name things so you can talk about them. You know, when I flew the Mecha experiment, we were looking at dust under a microscope, and we had to name the particles of dust so we could talk about them, or at least number them or something. So with Perseverance, we name rocks, and we had a scheme for naming rocks. We're going to name them after national parks around the country and around the world. And where we landed happened to be a national park in a region that is run by the Navajo Nation. And we quickly realized that there was sensitivity about naming things on another planet, you know, after things within a Navajo, the purview of the Navajo Nation. And we had to find Navajo interpreters who could help us with the process of naming things on Mars. Okay, so who would imagine you could become a linguist studying Navajo languages and play a role in a space program? Just as an example. So you want to be in the space program, study whatever moves you, and then look for opportunities to contribute it. Oh, what was I like? I was just one of those childs that's just everywhere, doing everything at once, taking things apart, running away, just, you know, just a handful. a handful, a pistol. I was the youngest child as well, and that's typical of younger children. Just curious about everything. And I think I see some of this in my daughter as someone who loves whatever she's doing, whatever she's studying. And I've been this way. I've been passionate about whatever has come my way. A student asked me how I got involved in space exploration, and I said, honestly, it wasn't something that I dreamed of as a kid. I read science fiction, which I think probably everybody in the business read science fiction. But I happened on it and loved it. And I'm sure if my career had gone into law, I would have loved that too. I'm just very fortunate that way.